No, it's not muted there. Okay, we have tech issues at a moment, so hang on.
All right, trying it now. There we go.
Wait. There you go.
Sweet. Hey, there we go.
We think it's working. We'll wait for stream to catch up and tell us that it's actually working. There we go. Okay.
Woo! Hey.
I watched as we unmuted and remuted the mic, and eventually
it's like when you try to put a USB stick in and you do it. It always takes 3 times.
Right, exactly.
Even though it should only ever take twice.
Yep,
doesn't make sense.
All right.
All right.
Anyway,
we'll stand a little closer to the mic.
Welcome to the 510 Guild Changes live stream. That's the name we're calling it. Someone just said, "Oh, hi, Eric and Charles." Keith is actually standing right here.
Yeah.
Keith wasn't watch the network cable. Keith, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Which I guess that means Keith's not going to tell you things he shouldn't be in chat. If he's standing here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back.
Never mind.
Right.
No, Keith said he's going to go back, so don't worry. You'll still get things you're not supposed to know. So what we're going to talk about today is guild stuff. Just as one note, because make it a little louder. Okay, we can do that. Just as a note, because it was happening a little bit earlier, our internet was being real weird when I was doing a test earlier. So if for some reason we start to cut out, just let us know. But I'm going to keep an eye on the connection as well. Hopefully that won't happen. So we should be good.
Yep.
Plan for the day, going to be about a 30-minute stream. One thing I highly recommend, if you haven't done so, and you don't have to do it right now, is we put up some very extensive forum posts on all of this on the forums. So you can go to the dev tracker, go to the PTS forums, and you'll be able to find all that information. We're going to reiterate all of it today in a much briefer form, and then kind of try to address some of the questions, tell you some changes that we've already planned based on the things that have come up.
Yeah.
So as you have questions, please ask them in chat. We'll try to grab some. We're going to do a question section at the end, as you can see by our agenda. But we'll try to grab some as we're going as well. Anything else to add before we go?
No, let's just dive right in, man.
Cool. All right. We got a Keith wave.
It's early in the morning. I haven't had much caffeine yet.
Yeah, usually
just sugar. I bring in donuts on Wednesdays, so I'm a little bit sugared up, but
usually
not at full power.
Usually we do these in the afternoon, so we'll see how it goes with us doing them in the morning.
All right.
Okay. First things first, because conquest is relevant to a bunch of the other stuff we're going to be talking about. We have some conquest changes that are coming in 5.10.
Correct.
So first thing, we have some new objectives.
Yes.
Chapters, Eternal Championship, War Zones, and more kill objectives.
Yes. And there are 2 versions of the Eternal Championship. There's one for doing any bit of it, and then I believe that's repeatable, I think.
Yep.
And then a daily one for doing all the way through.
Yep. So I think
boss time.
I think the one is literally complete any round of the Eternal Championship. So if you do all 10 rounds, I think you would get that 10 times, and then you'd get the daily version of the completing Eternal Championship. And so the reason that we did, actually, we should talk about the removal, and then we'll kind of come back to all this. So we've removed the defeating guards objective. So as part of like the planetary invasions, you could go kill guards on the planets. We've just removed it. And the one thing that we really want to highlight with some of the conquest changes that we've been making, and in this case especially, is one, we added a bunch of objectives for content that we want people to play. Like people play Eternal Championship, people play chapters, War Zones, obviously tons of people play.
Yeah.
And the kills objective, just to clarify exactly how it works, it is literally kill any NPC anywhere.
So if you still want to kill some guards, I guess you could.
Right, technically, yeah. But so if you want to go, if you're doing operations, if you're doing flashpoints, if you're doing dailies, if anything that involves killing NPCs of any kind, you will get credit for that. So you'll just kind of get that passively as you're playing. And so the one thing is, the team's really been looking at data a lot on what people are and are not doing while they're doing conquests. And so the reason we're removing the defeat guards objective is because, and it's funny, I saw on the forum someone said, yeah, I'm glad you're removing that because no one does it. You're right.
Yep.
There's a very small, tiny fraction of people that even do it, so we removed it. So we're going to continue to make changes like that as often as possible.
Again.
Let's try one more time, see if the connection stabilizes. No.
Oh, maybe not.
Maybe. Let us know if you see us lagging or not, because the connection's a little bit more stable. I tried moving us through a different server because I don't know why for some reason that was being crashy. Okay, that looks like it's good.
We'll keep going.
We'll keep going.
All right.
Okay, so
like I was saying, we've noticed the planet sniping happening, where guilds wait until the last second to commit to their planetary invasion. So in order to encourage people not to do that, we are adding a 15% bonus to your conquest points earned once you commit to a planetary invasion.
Correct.
We wanted to carefully balance that. We wanted it to be big enough to be meaningful so that if you start earlier in the week, that 15% will last the whole week. That's pretty significant if you do it early. But not so significant that, hey, if your guild didn't show up the very first minute of the very first day and do it, you're not at a huge, huge disadvantage.
Right.
So that is the goal with that.
Yep. So 2 things it accomplishes. one, hopefully it'll help incentivize to people to stop stream sniping. Stream sniping. Planet sniping. Can't fix stream sniping with conquests.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that if you're a small guild or if you're any sized guild that just participates in conquest normally, you literally just got a 15% buff to conquest points earned across the board.
Yeah.
So that'll also help you get to your objectives a lot easier as well. So cool. All right, we'll keep moving. Because we got a lot to cover, and hopefully the stream will continue to cooperate with us. Let me just make sure that everything's good. Okay, everything seems good still. Okay,
Sweet.
So we'll go through this pretty quickly. We're also making a lot of guild management changes and improvements in 5.10. Do you want to talk through some of those?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of being in a guild is, one of our goals is to make being in a guild more fun, have more to do, more objectives to chase. But we also want to make running a guild easier as well, because certainly our guild leaders are a key part of our community.
Yep.
So to that end, we were adding things like Guild Inspect that lets you see a little bit of information about someone else's guild. That information can be entered by the guild leader or people whom they give the rights to.
Yep.
Guild logging, just more effective logging of all the things that happen in a guild, stuff being removed from the guild bank, people being kicked, people being added, those sorts of things, so you can track when things were done. Guild mail, the ability to just send an email to all the members of your guild, pretty straightforward. Guild banned by legacy. If you've got someone annoying who keeps joining your guild under new names to troll you, you can now ban their entire legacy all at once.
And just to avoid a question that I know always comes up every time, no, you cannot get around this by changing your legacy name or something like that. When we ban by legacy, we know exactly who that person is. They can't get back in outside of making a new account.
Yeah.
So that won't work.
We are adding additional guild member ranks. I believe that is up to 20
think so.
now.
Yeah, we're going to double check and confirm that number, but we're pretty sure it's up to 20.
It's a pretty big jump.
Yep.
And finally, kind of a whole feature in and of itself, but we're not really going to get into it today, is PvP Challenge. This lets you challenge another guild group to, or actually any individual player can do it as well, but kind of the purpose of it in our mind is mainly for guilds, but anyone can do it. Challenge another group to a PvP match of any type, as long as you have the minimum number of players to launch that type of map. So you want to do a Warzone,
you're good. Keep going.
Arena, Starfighter, any of that, and it will launch a custom instance of that Warzone for you, those two groups to play against each other. And you can choose, if you are guild groups, you can choose to track the results of that match optionally, and have kind of an ongoing record of your PvP wins and losses against various guilds.
Right. Group challenges work for Galactic Starfighter. Yep. Yeah, you can do it for Starfighter, Arena, Warzones, any of those, and you can do it from anything from, I think, 1v1 in those modes all the way up to the max normally allowable players. Yep.
I saw mentioned heraldry. That was a feature that we were hoping to include here. It is not going to make it for 5.10, but it is still a feature we are working on and planning to release very soon.
Yep.
And it's real cool.
Yep. I know that I've seen some notes on the lag. It looks like we're not at least crashing out. So if we lag if we lag a bunch and you miss a section, just let us know. I'd rather not restart the stream if I can avoid it. So just let us know if for some reason something drops off. And also, while the connection is good, I'll post a recap of all of this stuff on the forums later, so that if you miss anything that we said, we'll make sure that it gets covered. So because we want to make sure that we catch all those things.
Cool. Let's get into the meat of this thing.
That's right. Guild leveling. How's it work, Charles?
Well, your guild, much like a player, will now earn levels by playing activities in the game. Specifically by doing conquests. You get guild XP every time you get conquest XP. I believe that's 2 for 1. So every 1 conquest point is 2 guild XP. Yep.
And someone asked why it works that way, why it's not just 1-to-1. The reason is math combined with having flexibility and being able to make changes. One of the designers could explain why, but
if you have a larger range of numbers, you can adjust how those levels go a little more specifically. It also gives us a little room. Hey, if that turns out to be too much or not enough, we have a little more room to adjust it. Whereas if it's lower, there's less adjustment that can be made.
Yep.
Without y'all really feeling the burn.
Correct. Yep. So what do you get? What do you get by leveling?
By leveling, you get a number of cool rewards. First of all, perks, which we'll be getting into in a minute. As your guild levels up, you'll gain access to increasing tiers of perks. Those perks have various gameplay impacts, either passive or in some cases active, and those perks are available at different times, depending on things. But we'll get to that.
Yep.
You will also be getting new bonuses, and now these bonuses used to be based on the size of your guild.
Yep.
Now they are based on your guild level, and they come fairly early in the guild leveling ranks overall, and kind of continue to go. They start at 5% each, I think, and
Yep.
0. I think in CXP it starts at 0 and then works its way up. But ultimately, you can work up to getting a 15% XP bonus, a 15% reputation gained bonus, and a 10% CXP bonus that was never available before for everyone in your guild as your guild levels up.
Yep.
What am I missing here? There's more probably.
There's a whole bunch more. We'll talk a lot more,
Yeah,
a little bit more,
especially as we get into the perks.
As we get into the perks. Yep. I saw
the other kind of thing. The actual total number of levels is effectively infinite. I mean, there is some max number in the system because that's the way reality works. But it'll be a long while before anyone hits that.
Yep.
And beyond just getting perks and getting XP bonuses, it's also just a very visible sign of how active your guild is and how long your guild has been doing stuff. Right? Like it's a way to say that is a guild that is doing a lot. That's a guild that has been in this game for a long time. Just kind of a prestige kind of way of showing why your guild is awesome.
Yep. Someone asked, can you do anything for guild perks or guild leveling involving cartel coins? Nope.
Nope.
There is nothing that you can purchase in any way that involves any of this. You can't buy currency. You can't even get conquest points faster. Like there's no boost that involve any of this.
Yep.
So no.
Yep.
Not at all. Okay. So the one thing that did come up, did you talk about the weekly cap as it relates to small versus large
guilds?
I did not,
yeah.
Okay, so one of the questions that have come up with pretty much all of this is small guilds versus large guilds, and how we've built the system around that. So there's definitely a lot of questions about, I am in a small guild, obviously large guilds are going to have a distinct advantage. So at its core, there is an element of if you have 400 people working towards one objective, they are going to do it better than 10 people working towards an objective. But we do understand that there's a lot more small guilds than large guilds, and so we also don't want that to be unfair either. So there's two things to that. One of it involves experience, one of it involves perks. So for experience, there's a weekly cap. We fully believe that there are going to be large guilds, maybe even some medium-sized guilds, that are going to hit the weekly cap. What that'll mean is that small guilds, although they may be a little bit behind, they shouldn't fall dramatically behind in the ability to gain experience, because we're going to stop progression for those medium and larger sized guilds week over week.
Yeah, it also gives us a sense of at what rate all things will be gained, so that we can adjust the system as we go.
Yep, and there was also a statistic that I had put on the forums about that. We expect guilds that are hitting small yield targets to level about 3 levels per week. And some people brought up an obvious math thing that I didn't realize when I wrote that, but I wrote it in a way that actually answered the question, which is a small yield, if you do that math, that's only a third of a level. What I didn't mean if you only hit the small yield and stop playing. Mm-hmm. What I was referring to is in our data, the average guild who hits a small yield, which I understand that there's plenty of large guilds who go for small yield as well, so take that with a grain of salt, but of the guilds that are hitting small yield targets, on average, they will hit 3 levels per week, which is what that actually meant. I didn't mean that if you just hit small and stop, because obviously that math doesn't work out that way. So, okay.
Cool. Perks. Oh shoot.
God, Paxton.
He keeps sneaking in.
Darn Paxton. Guild perks. Okay, so there's a lot to cover here in guild perks, and I think this is where a lot of the questions come in general. Mm-hmm. So let's jump into, just at its core thing, what is a perk?
So
what do?
Yeah, so as part of your guild flagship, which, by the way, we've reduced the total cost of guild flagships even more so than what Musco had said in the forum post.
That's right, yeah. So I had said that guild flagships were going to be going from 50 million to 15 million. But there was definitely a few people who were like, look, I'm a really small guild. We're real casual players. 15 million is even pretty rich for us. And so
we now dropped it to 8 million.
Correct. Guild flagships will cost 8 million credits starting in 510. So pretty much everyone should be able to have a guild flagship. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
We're not changing the room unlock costs just yet. We want to leave those as they are, because we do ultimately want something else to be a challenge for guilds to kind of work towards, and especially with perks revolving around the rooms, we want to kind of let that sit. Not saying we're opposed to changing in the future. Once there's way more people who have guild ships, we'll continue to see what level people are unlocking the rooms, and we'll make adjustments to that in the future if we need to.
Yeah. So. Anyway, so once you have your guild ship, as you unlock rooms, your bridge being the first one that's unlocked automatically, That one gives you, I believe, 2 perk slots, but each room gives you perk slots.
Yep.
And each of those slots can hold a certain kind of subset of perks. So as you level up your guild, as you gain your guild commendations by completing your weekly targets, those sorts of things, you can use a combination of commendations, credits, and of reinforcement modules,
Yep.
A separate piece. Sometimes not everything costs all 3 of those.
Yep. In fact, we'll come into specifics on what costs affect what things in a second.
Yes. But some combination of those 3 currencies will buy each perk. Some perks are always available. Those tend to have lower effects or more, quality of life kind of day-to-day things. Then there are perks that kind of rotate in on a schedule, generally 2 weeks-ish, but we want to keep that flexible. We may have some that last longer and some shorter.
Yep.
Those perks will tend to be the things that are more of an active thing or have a larger impact. And those which ones are available will change out each time we cycle it.
Yep.
Sometimes something may continue to be available. Sometimes it may not. We'll be playing with that as we see how people use them.
Yep. And so one of the questions that came up a lot is concerns over, if you look at the example perks that we list, there's some concerns over some of the things that are available in those perks, which we'll get to that in a second. That's a different thing. But one of the benefits we have by having, so we have core perks, which they only cost credits, and for the most part only cost credits. They're much more minimal in what they actually impact, and they're available at all times. Those shouldn't be problematic. Some of the rotating ones is where a lot of the power comes in some of these perks. And so if for some reason we notice that, one, if there's an exploit or something related to a perk, obviously we'll fix that very quickly. But if there isn't, there's just one that seems way too powerful, or on the other spectrum, it's just crap and no one wants it. If we see something on either one of those spectrums, it's going to rotate out in a couple of weeks. We just may never bring it back again, or we may
adjust
buff
it
it
before
or
we
nerf
bring it
it,
back,
right?
or-
And it could be 2 months before you ever see that perk rotate back in, and it may never come back ever again. So by us having rotating perks, it also gives us a lot of flexibility in how we balance them over time as well. So that should avoid some of those concerns as well.
Yeah.
So do you want to give an example of maybe a quality of life perk and a stat perk, and then
Sure.
we can explain some of the concerns people had and how we're addressing those?
So some of the kind of quality of life perks, that's stuff like summoning.
We may have died. I'm looking. Did we die? Oh, we're recovering. We've recovered. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to pause
Wait.
for a second to make sure we've actually fully recovered, and then we can. Yep. There's. I like that. We saw no chat, and then all of a sudden it's just a spam of Fs. I appreciate and love all of you for that. Thank you. Okay, we're good.
So some quality of life kinds of perks that you might get, that's summoning your guild bank out in the world. Every member can summon it individually. A group res that's an out-of-combat group res, just to make things go a little quicker.
Yep.
On top of all your other resurrection abilities.
Yep.
Stuff like that. Passive bonuses, like we mentioned before.
Yep. So one of the concerns that came up for stats specifically
Yes.
Is 2 things. One, please don't have any power effects in PvP. We agreed right out of the gates.
Done.
There is nothing. None of these perks that have any power impacts affect any PvP. Unranked, ranked, not open world maybe, but definitely nothing that is competitive in any way.
Yeah.
PvE, there's definitely a bit of discussion about what stats should or shouldn't impact. But I think in general, pretty much everyone agreed that they don't like the idea that these stats would affect progression PvE. So,
Especially, master mode operations, for example.
right. So one thing we're going to change is none of these perks will, our current plan anyways, that none of these perks will impact master mode operations. So that means that if you are doing progression or you are doing PvP, they will have no power effect at all, right out of the gates. Now, let me backtrack a second though. So hopefully that should be good news to a lot of you. But let me back it up a second because I think there may have been some, and we didn't specify it this clearly. Let's talk a little bit about how those stat perks actually work, because they're not actually as impactful as you may think they are. So there's 2 types of stat perks. There's active stat perks. You actually have to use an ability to increase a stat.
That ability is on a cooldown, etc.
Then there's also passive stats, which have a passive increase of like X endurance increase in flashpoints or something. And then there's the set bonuses. So let's talk about them one at a time. The first one is the active ones. So they don't do, especially for those of you watching, I bet they actually do nothing for you. Basically what they are is they are replicating the class buffs.
Yeah.
And so if you have unlocked
All of the class
all
buffs.
the class buffs from your legacy, they do nothing.
They won't stack.
They won't stack. So they do nothing. So if you already have those, they don't impact you. The value of those perks is specifically for newer players, which is always new players coming in and out of guilds, leveling players who are leveling, who haven't unlocked everything in their legacy. It's great for them because it gives you as a guild a mechanism to give them the ability to unlock all the class buffs before they've done so in their legacy. So the actives actually don't have any power increase to them. The passive ones, you can only have one active. They fit in only one slot.
You can only have one passive
Sure.
slotted at a time.
Correct. You can only have one passive stat. Oh, wait, let me make sure the stream is recovered before I keep talking. Okay. You can only have one passive stat at a time because it fits into a singular perk slot that has the same naming as other ones. You can only have one perk with the same name at a time. So if you go, I want 3% endurance and flash points, that means you can't get crit mastery or any of the other stats. You have to pick one. So it's only going to be one stat. And that's it. I've now listed all of the stats you get. One is something that you already have, assuming you have all the class buffs, which you certainly would in an operation. The other one is a passive, which you can only pick one stat that you want that benefit from at a time.
And again, these things cycle. We'll be watching them closely. So if it does turn out that something's overpowered, we'll adjust it.
Yep. And then there is the set bonuses, which do give you bonuses above and beyond that as well, but it depends on which set bonus you want and which set bonus you go for, which will determine what stats you get. So at most, you would be getting one singular stat you chose in a single gameplay type and the set bonus.
Set bonus one.
That's it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that alleviates some of your concerns because the actual stat benefit to gameplay is fairly minimal, but it is there. So I had a question I saw that came up a few times. Since we changed conquest end time to commit time to be 1 hour, there's some concerns about players' abilities to track overall contribution. Yeah. So I need to double check with the team, but we had talked about making sure that that was tracked in logging. And I think it's in. I'm pretty sure that that is a part of the guild logs now, is that it'll just dump all the information on what points everyone contributed. But let me verify to make sure it actually got in. Because I know it was something it wasn't something they originally planned for, and then based on your feedback, I made sure to pass it on. So they were pushing on trying to get it in. I'm just not sure that it made it. So I'll verify and let you guys know. Okay. So that's guild perks.
Paxton, damn. How does he...
So if you don't know Paxton just keeps finding his way into literally everything.
He's a roguish but charming pirate, keeps slipping his way into things, and here he is slipping into our live stream.
And there's been a lot of questions on how to get him. We should really probably tell people at some point how to get him.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll come up sometime
soon.
That
should come up sometime soon.
Let's get him out of here.
Yep.
All right.
Enough Paxton. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, and we can do a couple extra minutes since the stream was being a jerk. For no apparent reason. So let us know any of the questions that you guys have about anything we talked about today, anything related to guild perks, guild leveling, conquest changes. One of the questions that I saw come up a bunch, so I'll preempt it. When's 510 coming?
Real soon.
Yeah.
No, we're still targeting December. We're targeting early December.
Yeah. You should expect it at the beginning of December.
Yeah, but
that's all we're ready to say right now.
Stuff's still coming together. Yep. We want to be sure we're giving you a really solid date when we give you a solid date.
Oh, and on that note too.
And by the way, it's still on PTS.
Right, it's all on PTS.
Literally all of this stuff we just talked about.
Right, so
for the most part, is on PTS.
If you don't know, we moved towards not always giving concrete release dates until we're really sure we're going to release it at that point, and we do that a lot based on you playing on PTS, giving us your feedback, letting us know what you think of the update and the systems and changes in content. So please, all of this is on PTS. Please go play it and let us know your thoughts. Even if you don't play it, which you should, but even if you don't, go jump on the forums, let us know your thoughts on all the stuff we've talked about today, because there's some crazy threads that are there as well.
Yep.
Do free-to-play players get guild perks? Yes. There is no. I don't think there's any.
I don't know any reason why.
I don't think there's any limitations on your ability to get perks. Like,
we'll double check that.
We'll double check. But if you are in a guild and the guild has assigned to those perks, theoretically you should get them. I don't see why that wouldn't. So yeah, again, a question: are guild perks for subscribers only? No, not at all. How many people? One of the perks was how you get reinforcement components. You have to be in a guild group. How many people have to be in a group to qualify as a guild group? That's a very good question.
I would say they were all guild.
I would
personally.
Say, I would assume if you have two people and they're in a group and they're both in the same guild, that would probably qualify. But that's a very good question. Please ask that on the forums as well. I will find out the answer. That's a good question.
Yep.
Are the links? Can we make clickable links in the guild details panel?
I don't think so at launch, but that's a great thing. I know we talked about it at one point.
Yeah, I think that was one of the
so that's a great
stretch goals.
suggestion. We'll if we don't have it right in 5.10, we'll see if we can't do that. later on.
Will there be a guild calendar in the future?
That was definitely one that we talked about doing as well. It didn't quite fit in to the schedule for 5.10, but it's something we can still look into. I think a lot of the feedback we got was that honestly a lot of people used other systems to track their calendars and weren't as interested in that feature generally, but maybe we didn't seek feedback from the right places. So if that is something that your guild would really like to see, don't hesitate to mention it.
Yep. Is guild perk are guild perks important? I'm always solo. Do I have to join a guild for this? It's up to you, honestly. There definitely will be some quality of life benefits that you may get out of it. And to be perfectly honest, part of our plan for implementing this is even for people who are solo players, we do really want to incentivize you to get in a guild. As an MMO, we're a very social game, and so incentivizing people to join guilds and participate in things like conquest and guild events and stuff is definitely part of our intention here for full transparency. That absolutely is intended. So we're definitely nudging you to join a guild because there's some cool stuff you could get out of it. But no, there's nothing in here that's like you're going to suddenly be terrible at the game because it's been there. That would have been bad if that was the way that it works.
And I think that's a good point as well, is that we are not rebalancing any content based on, because like we said, the guild perks are pretty selective in what they're useful for.
Yep.
We're not rebalancing anything so that like, oh, I'm solo and now I can't do anything without these perks. That's not going to happen. Nightmare Ops, nothing is changing its balance targets based on those at this time.
Yep. Musco, what about framework drops now that the guild price has dropped? So we talked a little bit about this earlier. There are no other changes to pricing related to guilds yet, especially once we get way more people into guild flagships and we can monitor kind of the rate at which people are purchasing rooms and all that stuff. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. So the one thing that I really want to highlight, the designers that are working on this really wanted me to stress, a lot of the decisions we've made in building conquests, building guild leveling, building guild perks is all based on data. All of it is based on how people are playing day to day. And so what we want to continue doing, this is not just something we're going to put out and leave alone, is we're going to continue monitor data day over day once this is out in the wild and see how fast are people completing conquests. Are they hitting all the yield targets? Does everyone have perks? Because one of the questions that came up from small versus large guilds, the system is 100% built that if you are a small guild who is hitting a small yield target most weeks, you can afford and slot a guild perk in every slot.
Yeah. Just
like a large guild. Like a large guild may be higher level, so they might be able to get higher tier, but ultimately you will still be able to have perks everywhere. Mm-hmm. So you can keep pace with them in that regard, and that was very much intentional to make sure that small guilds can keep pace with large guilds. Let's see. So guild flagship and guild stronghold keys are a nightmare. I know that it was definitely on the stretch goals of one of the things they wanted to put in for the guild features was to make improvements to that. I don't think it's happened, but it's definitely still on the back burner. It's on the Wall of Crazy list as something we definitely would love to do in the future because it's something we hear about pretty frequently. And especially now that there's going to be way more people with guild ships, it's gonna bubble up more. So definitely keep that feedback coming, but no, it's something the team is aware of.
Yeah.
Can you restrict mass kick or limit it? I mean, theoretically, the only people that can do it are... You already have the controls to make it that only certain ranks can do it anyway. So I'm not sure what else you'd want to limit it. I'm not entirely sure.
Give us a little more info there.
Yeah, we did, yeah. Can you ban large guild from doing the low-yield planet? So, kind of is just a larger thing, and Charles can jump in on any of this that I spew something incorrect.
Never.
Which I do. So one of the things that has come up a lot is people asking for us to limit what guilds can do or what guilds can qualify for based on size. Mm-hmm. So example, if you have more than 500 guild members, you can't go for a small guild. There's some problems with that. Is that let me give you an example. You can have, I don't even remember the number of how many characters you can have on a single server, but the answer is really a lot. So if you could realistically have, I'm going to make up a number because I don't remember. You could have 20 players in a guild and still have a 500-person guild because it's measured by characters. And so the problem is if we try to impose limits based on just characters by guild, it doesn't even mean that that's active people, right? Like they could be that guild could be smaller than your 30-person guild, but because they have every single one of their characters in there because they're alt heavy, they look like a bigger guild. Mm-hmm. The other problem too is that like if let's say we say once you reach a certain number of guild members, the pricing changes for guild perks. The problem is, then guilds might go, sorry, we're at 200 members, we can't recruit a single other person, otherwise our pricing is ruined. And now we're stopping gameplay for an entire guild. And so, although we understand like the reasoning why a lot of people want us to do that, and we're always exploring options like that, for sure, imposing limitations around that can be dangerous because it can also then become punishing to players, and we don't really want to do that either. So hopefully enough of that came out. I saw the internet dove for a second, so hopefully that made sense. Oh, I see. Your question was, can you restrict the number of basically the number of people someone can kick at a time to stop people from being angry? That's interesting. That's definitely something we will bring it up with the team. We hadn't really thought about. I mean, the cases where there's angry officers and stuff going rogue and mass kicking, I don't think is that frequent. But we can certainly bring it up because that's interesting. We hadn't thought about that. Okay, let's do 2 more questions because we're about 5 minutes over, and then we'll call it a day.
Just real quick, I've seen a few comments about gear and stuff. That's definitely not what we're here today to talk about, but that doesn't mean we are not going to talk about it a little bit more before 5.10 goes live. So you can look for probably a forum post talking about some stuff there. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves on tweaks and stuff, but we will be talking gear a little bit more before the update goes live.
Yep, and just to reiterate it, because I saw the internet dive for a second, those of you asking about gear, we should have a post with some more information about the new tier, about Masterwork with gear in 5.10 and some changes we're making. So stay tuned to that in the next week or so.
But this is all guilds all day.
That's right. Can you give us a benefit for having already purchased a $50 million guild ship? I mean, you already have the guild ship. So that's kind of like that.
I don't know a lot of stores that would give you your money back if you bought something 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's
I know that you may not have done that.
It's tricky. I mean, like
if you bought it like yesterday and this happened, reach out.
Yeah, reach out to us for sure. If you recently purchased it, if you've had it for a while, it's kind of tricky, right? Because
you've gotten the benefit of having it all that time that everyone else would have had.
Right, know? Exactly. So it's kind of tricky. It's one of those cases where we have no intentions of doing refunds or something like that. We recognize that, especially if you purchased it very recently, it is crappy to understand that it's going to cost $42 million less, which is why we try to give you as much notice as possible that it's going to change. If you purchased it recently, though, reach out and let us know. I'm not guaranteeing that we can do anything, but we can try.
Max Deco's in a flagship. I don't think we're doing that right now, but it is something we've talked about, so we'll look into it. Because certainly we've had some strongholds recently that had a rather ludicrous number of decorations in them, so it might be something we could do.
Yep, and I also saw a question earlier, are we increasing the guild cap beyond 1,000 members? No, there is no plans at all to increase that currently, because that number is huge, even from our side, so definitely no plans to increase that right now. Okay, I think we'll call it there. Thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah,
again,
really appreciate it.
Please